Okay, guys, welcome back for another week of school. Hope you had a good weekend. Funny story, I just spent I don't know how long doing this whole lesson and I never hit record. So roast me in the comments if you want. This is my second time doing this. Okay, so all this week we are going to be focusing on section 2.4. Again, without a book, that's kind of meaningless, but just so you know, it's all the same topic. We're just hitting it from different directions. Um, Special note, this is a 4-day week. We don't have school Friday, and Thursday is the end of the marking period. So, well, I'll still do the deadline Friday night before midnight, but you're going to want to get all your stuff done so that teachers can grade it and get it in on time for the report card. So, anything you're behind on, all the stuff for this week, you need to get caught up and get it done. And that goes for every class. Okay, so the topic is writing linear equations. We've already done standard form. We had a lesson on that last week. That's ax plus by equals c. Now we're going to be focusing on slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And that's a thing you should have learned in Algebra 1. This is kind of a review. There's a lot to it, so yes, we are spending 3 days on it, but ideally this is stuff you know, and this is just a refresher. If you don't know this already, the good news is it is Algebra 1 level stuff, so it should be fairly easy to learn if you've already gotten through Algebra 1 and geometry. But honestly, everyone should know this. It should just be a refresher. So we're going to be writing equations, linear equations, or the equations of lines, in y equals mx plus b form in 4 circumstances. If you're given a graph, if you're given the slope and the intercept, which is easy, don't tell anyone, if you're given a point and a slope, which takes a little bit of work, and then transferring from standard form into slope-intercept form, which is a little work, but it's not very difficult. So that's where we're going. Just a brief note before we get going. So the formula or the form is y equals mx plus b. Y and x are, of course, your variables that go with the xy axis. M stands for slope. B stands for y-intercept. And I don't want to get too long into a boring lecture, but I thought I would tell you a few things about this, because often people ask why is it M and why is it B. Originally, and you can still see this in some places, x and y, you're kind of locked in. Don't get a choice with those. They're the xy axis. But for other parts of the formula, originally a and b were used, I think just because they're the first 2 letters of the alphabet. So a and b. A is slope, b is intercept. The A eventually changed to M, and I used to not know why, and I would just lie if a student ever asked. I'd say, well, M stands for mountains, and mountains have slope, and blah, blah, blah. And that's not true. The real reason is the M is multiplied by X, or the A is multiplied by X. So it was often called the multiplier. And so if people said, well, if we're just going to call it the multiplier, why don't we use M instead of A? And I think that just sort of stuck. So M is used for slope, which you've already done, slope, rise over run. You know, there's a whole lesson on that. If you haven't done it yet, go back and do it before you do this lesson. Okay, so M is slope, that's the number in front of X, and that's multiplied by. B is the y-intercept, that's the number after X. It's added. Unless it's negative, you might call it subtracted. But that's the stuff you need to know. So the first 4 exercises you can see, and of course I'm going to do the evens, you're going to do the odds. Write the slope-intercept form of the equation of each line, and you're given a graph. So the answer to all of these exercises is going to be y equals something times x, and then either plus or minus something. So I'm just going to write y equals blank x, and then the space after the x is also blank. I need to know what is the slope for this problem, the rise over run, and again, we've had a lesson on this, and what is the b in this problem, the y-intercept. Well, to find the rise over run, the slope, basically pick 2 points on the graph and count from one to the other. So I am going to choose, I'm going to switch to red so it shows up a little better on the blue graph, and choose these 2 points. How do I get from one to the other? And remember, you always look at a graph from left to right. So if I start here, I need to go down 1 and over 1. Well, down is a negative direction. Over to the right is a positive direction. So that's down 1 over 1. That's negative 1 over 1, which simplifies to just a negative 1. And what's the b? Where does this blue line cross the y-axis? Okay, it's not blue anymore. Let me erase that. The y-axis, so not this one, that's irrelevant. The x-intercept, completely irrelevant. Where does it cross the y-axis? And it crosses down here at -3. So -3 is the y-intercept. So the m, the slope, is -1. That goes here. The y-intercept is -3. It goes there. And that's essentially your answer. Now, I say essentially because hopefully you know that when you multiply by 1, you don't normally write the 1 down. So when we go to check ourselves, instead of -1x, it's probably just going to say -x minus 3. So I'll circle that, and like I always do for consistency, I'll check every answer, and there it is, -x minus 3. Let's do the next one exact same way. So how do you start? How do you start one of these problems? You write y equals, leave a little space, x, and then of course there's a blank space after the x. And we have to fill in those two spaces. First of all, what's the slope? The slope is where you pick 2 points and count from one to the other. Now, you can't just pick any 2 points. I can't pick this point and this point because I don't know what the count is. Is that up 1 over 2, or is that up, 0.9 and over 2? You want to pick 2 points where they cross in what's known as a lattice point or a grid point. And to me, the two most obvious points you can choose would be the origin here and then over here at 5, 2. I think you could also pick way over here, but it'll work out to be the same way. To get from one point to the other, I have to go up is a positive direction, over 5. I didn't mean to draw that. Oops, doggone it, I'm getting carried away here. Up 2 over 5. Even if I picked these 2 points, it'd still be up 2 over 5. Up 2 over 5. So the slope works out to be 2/5. Remember, you always go left to right. Now, if you screwed this up and you went from right to left, let's say you chose to go from this point to that point, that's over. Oh, I hope you can't hear my dogs in the background. They're howling like crazy. All right, anyway, if I went the other direction, to the left is a negative direction, so that's -5, and down 2 is -2. So we end up with -2 over -5, but you know that a negative divided by negative is a positive, right? Which gives you the exact same answer. So you're supposed to go left to right, but if you screw it up, you should still be able to get the right answer. Okay, a little bit of a tangent there. Let's get back on track. So the slope is 2/5. I put a 2/5 here in front of x. What's the y-intercept? Where does this line cross the y-axis? And it looks like it crosses right there, which, that's the origin, 0, 0. So the y-intercept is 0. Oh, okay, this is going to bother me if I have the wrong shade of blue. Time out. There, 2/5. So the y-intercept is 0, so plus 0. And then just like in the last problem where you don't normally write a 1 in front of a variable, you don't normally write plus 0. If you add 0, it really doesn't do anything. So the answer key should just be y equals 2/5 x. Let me scroll down and check number 4. Y equals 2/5 x, right there. Okay, so you've got 2 of those to try on your own. Do it just the, oops, getting carried away. Need to slow down. Do it just the same way I did, number 1 and 3. Okay, for the next set of problems, there's only 2 because honestly, this is too easy. You're never going to get problems this easy, almost never. They show up once in a while. So, same thing, y equals blank times x plus or minus blank. You got to fill in the 2 blanks. What goes in front of the x? Slope. Well, here's the slope. What goes after the x? The y-intercept. Well, here's the y-intercept. And done. So this is just ridiculously easy. Your goal is to fill in the slope value and the intercept value, and they tell you the slope value and the intercept value, so you just put them there. So number 5 should be easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, the problem is people wish and hope that every exercise in their homework would be that easy. So they try to do the rest of the homework using that same method, and it just doesn't work. Here, in the next set, and we've got several problems here in a row, we're supposed to write the equation of the line given a point and given a slope. So this is our slope. That's pretty straightforward. That's m. But when we go our final answer, y equals blank x plus or minus blank, yes, we can just put a 6 there, but we do not put a -1 here, or we do not put a negative 4 there. It's not that easy. It doesn't work that way. You just can't. We don't know what the y-intercept is, and we're not told what the y-intercept is. So here's what you need to do. I'm going to leave this blank just for the time being. We need to fill in this blank. Underneath the y, I'm going to write negative 4 because that is a y value. I'm going to bring down the equal sign. I'm going to bring down the 6. Underneath x, I'm going to write negative 1 because that is the x value. Now I don't want 6 take away 1. I want 6 times negative 1. And then underneath this blank space, it's plus b. b is what we're looking for. Now let me take a time out for just a second before I go any further. My b's look a lot like 6's. To me they don't, but every student I've ever had has told me that they look too much alike. So forgive me ahead of time. I'll do my best. Maybe if I make the b's all have a little tail on them, it'll be better. Okay, so we need to calculate b. So I've got negative 4 equals 6 times negative 1 is negative 6 plus b. Isolate b by adding 6 to both sides. If it's negative, you need to add it. This cancels out. I get 2 equals b. That's a positive 2. That means my blank space up here is a plus 2. And that should be my answer. Y equals 6x plus 2. Let me go down and check number 8. Where is it? There it is. Y equals 6x plus 2. Okay, if I went through that too fast, you know, you can always go back and rewatch it. You've got video here. But I'm going to do number 10 the exact same way. Going to try to stay really consistent if you're having any trouble at all. Again, hopefully this is review for you. You've already learned it. It's not a big deal. So y equals blank x plus or minus blank. And the first blank is negative 4/3. It's right there. Easy peasy. Now we need to calculate, let me switch to yellow, the b, the y-intercept. We need to figure out what that is. So underneath y, I'm going to put 1. Bring down the equal sign. Bring down the negative 4/3. Underneath x, I'm going to put times negative 3. Make that look like a 3. And then where the blank is, plus b. We need a variable there to solve for. It's called the b, the y-intercept, so I'm going to use b. Now if we just solve this, we're done. The first thing we have to do is negative 4/3 times negative 3. Now we did do a little review of fractions and how you do this. So what do we have here? Negative times negative is positive. This is 3 over 1. These 3's cancel. That gives us 4 over 1, which is just positive 4. 1 equals 4 plus b. Isolate b by subtracting 4 on both sides. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. I get b equals negative 3, so that means negative 3 goes right here. Let me scroll down and check number 10, negative 4/3 x minus 3. Number 10, negative 4/3 x minus 3. Okay, before I go on to the next one, I want to play a little devil's advocate. I want to say that some people, even though we reviewed fractions, still struggle with doing something like negative 4/3 times negative 3. So I'm going to bring up the Desmos calculator that I've asked you all to install. If you haven't yet, get Desmos from the self-service app. I'm going to show you, if you don't know, how to type in negative 4/3 times negative 3. So you do negative 4 divided by 3, and that appears as negative 4/3. Now you'll see the cursor blinking next to the 3. I don't want it there. I want it over to the right. So if I just tap the screen with my finger, it moves the cursor over, and then I can go times, oops, that's a 6, sorry, times negative 3, and there it is. That's how you can get the 4. If you really just need to use a calculator, you know, you can split your screen like this and just use the divide button as your fraction button. So keep that in mind if you need the help. All right, so 8 and 10 are your fairly typical problems. They all sort of work this way, with two exceptions, vertical lines and horizontal lines. They don't necessarily follow the y equals mx plus b pattern. So like vertical lines definitely don't. Horizontal lines kind of do. There's some technicality there that I don't want to get into. I just want to teach you how it's done. So let's do this. So number 12, slope equals undefined. So you need to have knowledge in your head that anytime the slope is undefined, this is a vertical line. So you need to know this. This is vertical. when you have a vertical line, we are not going to use y equals mx plus b. That looks like h plus b. We're not going to use that. All you have to do for a vertical line is write, hold on, just about to teach you wrong, that would be great. Write x equals, and then whatever number is in the x coordinate. So the answer to number 12 is simply x equals -1, and you're done. It doesn't get much simpler than that. The reason it might not be simple is because, again, you need head knowledge that tells you to do this. And like most people, you probably want to learn one method that you can apply to all problems. Here we've got a problem where you don't apply that method. But what you do end up doing is very simple. Just x equals and then the x number. Don't use the y number at all. Don't use y equals mx plus b. Let me do my normal and check number 12 just so I can be consistent, and there it is. And are you going to have a vertical line in your homework? Well, look at number 13 down there. So when you do 13, it's going to be a lot like number 12. Let's move on to 14. Slope equals 0. Again, this is another special situation. You should have just knowledge in your head that whenever slope is 0, you have a horizontal line. Horizontal lines, you actually can use y equals mx plus b if you want to. You can go through all of the same steps that I went through in number 8 and 10, and it will work. However, the alternate method is super easy. So with a vertical line, it was just x equals whatever number. With a vertical line, did I say that right? With a vertical line, it's x equals whatever number. With a horizontal line, it's y equals whatever number is in the y position. So the answer to number 14 is simply y equals 4. You could do the whole y equals mx plus b, plug in the numbers, work it out, and you'll still get the right answer. But that's going to take, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, whatever. And you can just write y equals 4 and you're done. That's a lot easier. So let me check number 14. There it is, y equals 4. So if you see a 0 slope or you see an undefined slope, you should know that these are potentially easier problems with less work. And look at your number 11 and 13. So, all right, let's move on. By the way, at this point, if you're, I'm going to do 2 more examples. If you get this, you can move on. Number 20 and 22 are different, so maybe fast forward to there if you need to. I'm going to go ahead and keep plugging away. All right, so we need to write y equals mx plus b. Here's a space for my m. There's a space for my plus b. The m is clearly -1. What is the b? I don't know. So plug in for our y, -2. Bring down the equal sign in the -1. For the x, plug in 2. For plus b, you just make it plus b and solve this. -2 equals 1 times 2 is -2 plus b. To isolate b, solve for b, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. -2 plus 2 is 0. 0 equals b, which means that the answer is -1x plus 0. But there's a couple things here, like what happened before. When you multiply something by 1, you don't normally put the 1 there. You just put the negative sign in this case. And then with plus 0, you generally don't write plus 0. You just would leave that off. So y equals -x should be the answer to number 16. And it is. Y equals -x. Let's look at number 18. Where am I? 18. Again, y equals mx plus b. The m is -6/5 right there. So this is my y, -1 equals -6/5. X is 5 times 5. What am I doing? Times 5 plus b. We need to calculate or solve for b. -1 equals -6/5 times 5. Let me do this just for extra practice so you can get used to your calculator if you need to. -6 divided by 5. Move the cursor over. Times 5 is simply -6. And here we have a problem with my 6's and b's looking, where'd it go? There it is. Too much like each other. Hopefully you can tell the difference there. So isolate b, I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and I get -1 plus 6 is 5. 5 equals b. So I put a plus 5 right there, and that should be my answer to number 18. Number 18, and there it is. Okay. Finally, the last 4 problems. I'm going to do the evens, of course. You're going to do the odds. We need to take the equations that are given, and these are in standard form, and rearrange them or rewrite them in slope-intercept form. So we're not solving anything, really. We're kind of doing, if you remember a couple weeks ago, we did literal equations where you just isolate a particular variable. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to isolate this y. So how am I going to go about doing that? Well, first, I'm going to subtract the whole 10x term to eliminate it from this left-hand side of the equal sign. That gives me 3y. So I'm trying to isolate the y. I've just done part of that. The other side I have 12 minus 10x. Now you could write 12 minus 10x. Mathematically, you would be correct. But in the context of what we're doing, we like the x term to come first. So what I'm really going to do is write negative 10x first, and then since that 12 is positive, you bring down plus 12. Now, is y isolated? Not quite yet. There's still that 3 there. That's 3 times y, so you have to divide by 3. And so what you do is you divide every term by 3. That isolates the y. The negative 10x divided by 3, well, you can't really divide 10 by 3, not neatly, so just leave it as a fraction, negative 10 thirds. And that makes sense because slope is supposed to be a fraction. So negative 10 thirds x. Now notice here the x was sort of above the fraction bar, and here it's next to it. And the fact is you're just allowed to do that. It's totally the same. You can just do that. So do that. Negative 10x over 3 becomes negative 10 thirds x. And then plus 12 over 3. Well, you can reduce or simplify that. 12 divided by 3 is 4. And that should be our answer for number 20. Negative 10 thirds x plus 4. Negative 10 thirds x plus 4. And I'll go ahead and peek at the answer number 22, kind of get that in my short-term memory so we can finish this lesson up. 6/7 x minus 4. So number 22, let's isolate the y. All right, I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. I get negative 7y equals 28 minus 6x, or negative 6x plus 28. Now to isolate y, I've seen a few people make this mistake, so don't do what I'm about to do. They see, oh, minus 7, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. No. I understand why you would do that, but the negative 7 is being multiplied by y, and what we're trying to do is to break it free or eliminate it from the y by doing the opposite. So the opposite of multiply is going to be divide. So we need to divide everything here by negative 7. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is positive 1, so that gives us positive 1y. Negative 6 divided by negative 7, they don't really divide out, but you can cancel those negatives and end up with 6/7. And remember, instead of putting the x up there, you're allowed to just put it right there. It's the same thing. And then 28 divided by negative 7 is negative 4, so I'm just going to write minus 4. And remember the answer from short-term memory, 6/7 x minus 4. There it is. Okay, so this is your work. Do the odds just like I did the evens. Don't forget your vertical and horizontal lines. Those are probably the only tricky ones on the whole paper. But if you do have trouble with anything, don't be afraid to email me or give a private comment through Google Classroom, and just let me know and I'll do everything I can to help you. So good luck. Let me know if you have issues, and talk to you again.